Hello, I'm Jacob. You're watching the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors. Today I want to talk about the Uvalde shooting Punisher. This is a topic that you've probably heard of and are probably up to speed on, but I want to give a quick synopsis anyways for anybody who isn't, or so that anybody who's watching who is potentially more educated than myself on the topic knows from where I stand to make these points. So let's get started. Now, the basis of where I'm going to start this video is the meme that we're probably all familiar with, that you're probably looking at right now, and that is where this particular police officer has a pistol in his hand. He's looking down at his phone. His background is the Punisher, and it is comparing this police officer to the real fictional fantasy Punisher. And a lot of them say something like how prepared you are, or how prepared you think you are versus how prepared you are. Is this a fair comparison? Now, if you didn't know, it's generally accepted that it's fairly cringy to wear the Punisher, to put the logo onto your guns, etc., because none of you are out there being a vigilante dispensing justice despite the law. However, this meme comparing what you think you are versus what you actually are, I think is absolutely valid. I keep getting comments of people saying this comparison is stupid. They don't say it's insensitive. Because if they said it was insensitive, I would have no response. That's fine. You think it's insensitive. I'm not going to argue that. But to say it's stupid or wrong, I think maybe shows a lack of understanding of what the Punisher is. Maybe. So as the story goes, and this changes, this particular police officer was potentially texting his wife who was in the building. He wanted to go in, potentially, like all this story changes, guys, probably because they're making it up as they go, but he was stopped by his fellow police officers, disarmed, and potentially moved out of the area. Any of those details could be wrong, any of them could have changed, and you could have heard differently for any of them. So the Punisher's wife is in the building with a shooter. Does he allow himself to be disarmed? The Punisher's children. Any children. Let's just say the Punisher doesn't care about anybody in the building except for the bad guys. Does the Punisher go in? Yes, the Punisher goes in. He doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about what people will think. He doesn't care about his job. The Punisher, this person, this fantasy persona that we have, only cares about doing what's right, and people love him because he does what's right with no regard to himself. He is completely given up on his life, the value of his life and everything after he, what? Lost his wife. So, is it fair to make a comparison between the fantasies that we have of ourselves versus the reality in the light of a character like the Punisher and who we actually are, as symbolized by a cop who did not go into a building and save his wife from a shooter with a Punisher background on his phone? Yes, absolutely valid. Let's get over and past this. It's a good comparison. You can say, once again, you can say it's insensitive. It is insensitive, but it is reality. There is a difference between the fantasy and the reality. So let's talk about this a little bit more without the Punisher, and then I want to talk real quick about why it's important. Hey, so if you are enjoying this video, consider checking out the description box below. You can support my businesses, Beach and Tactical. I primarily make rifle slings based on my experience on deployment. I have a knife brand, Exodus Knife and Tool. I'm a brand ambassador for Palmetto State Armory, for Brownells. I'm sorry, I am an affiliate. And I've got my social media links and Patreon as well. Feel free to check those out. So let's get past the comparison between the fantasy Punisher and the real Punisher. This comes down to responsibility. As a man, as a husband, as a father, you are responsible for your own well-being, for the well-being of your family. And so, you know, this is gonna make people mad, but you know, guess what? If you send your children to a school where they will not take responsibility for your children's safety, if they are, ultimately that comes back on you, period. You are ultimately responsibility. A task can be delegated, but responsibility cannot. So your family's safety is always your responsibility. Your personal safety is always your responsibility. Anybody who failed in this Uvalde situation, let's say this police officer sues them and wins and gets all of this money, is that going to bring his wife back? No, it's not. Nobody can take responsibility for your safety and well-being. You have to, which means that when people try to and you allow them, right? You found an excuse, but at the end of the day, you're still responsible. And you know it, right? So if you send your kids to school, you're still responsible for their safety. If you, you know, let your wife go out with your kids and you haven't worried about her training or what she's carrying, you're still responsible as a husband and for yourself, no matter what the situation is. You know, the police are not responsible for you. Not even legally are they obligated to protect you. You are responsible for yourself. So because this police officer didn't want to go against the grain, didn't want to cause a fuss, and or potentially didn't want to get in trouble with his job or lose his job, his wife died. He chose not going against the grain and keeping his job over the life of his wife. Might not have known that was the decision he was making at the time, but that's the decision he made. That sucks, guys. It's insensitive, but that's the reality. He even has more protection than we do. He's there with other police officers. So let's say that he says, to heck with all of you boys, I'm going in no matter what. He knows he's not going to get shot in the back. Do I know that? If my wife is in an active shooter situation in a school, do I know that if I say, heck the police, I'm going in, that they're not going to shoot me in the back? No, I don't know that, but he does. He does. He allowed himself to be disarmed. He allowed himself to be taken off the premises. So why is this all important? First off, there's your priorities, right? Your priorities of training. There's the reality here of mindset, tactics, skills, gear. The reason that your training is so important is skills, and your training should incorporate mindset. And that is why tactical response stands apart from any, almost any of the other training schools that I have been to. Is they're constantly talking about mindset. It is what changes. It is the number one variable that makes the day at the end of the day. So just for someone who's not really getting it, you've got the best shooter in the world. Let's just say it's Jerry Miculek. I don't know who the best shooter is. With the best gun, he's got the best tactics. And the person that he's going up against, he's going to get into a fight to the death, right? With a guy that's never had any training, has an inferior firearm, does not have good tactics. But let's just say Jerry Miculek has absolutely no desire and will take no chance to kill the bad guy. And the bad guy doesn't care about anything. The only thing on the entire earth that he wants to do is kill Jerry Miculek. Bad guy has a huge advantage. A huge, potentially insurmountable advantage. So, and the thing is, all of your training today, your NRA training and this and that and the other thing, they're all teaching you to be afraid of pulling the trigger, to be afraid of the bad guy, to be afraid of the legal system, and that's a very important topic that I'll get to in just a moment. To be afraid of what you can do, to be afraid of what you can't do. They're setting you up to lose the fight because they are encouraging a pacifist mindset in a situation where there is no room for pacifism. You're taking responsibility and for your self-ownership. There's no room, there's no wiggle room there. So let's talk about the legal system. One of the other comments that I saw was like, oh, well, we can't release footage about this shooting, or we can't know about that because then that would be used over here, that could be used in the legal system here. All kinds of arguments about people, you shouldn't get military training because it could be used against you in court, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. You are afraid of your government. You are afraid of a legal system that you know is corrupt. And instead of owning yourself and standing outside of that system, you comply. You are afraid of your government and of your neighbor, and you comply. That is the enemy of mindset. That is the enemy of self-ownership. And with that mindset, there can be no liberty. All the time, all this time we see people commenting on whatever subject. This is why our rights are being taken away. Our rights are not being upheld by our government because you don't believe in rights. You believe in privileges. Rights cannot be taken away. So there is nothing that you can post or do that's going to take someone else's rights away. But by saying that there is, what you are doing is empowering the government to not respect your rights because you don't believe you have any rights. You only believe in privileges. You, in your heart, are a slave. You do not believe in liberty or self-ownership because if you did believe in liberty or self-ownership, you'd have to believe in the same for your neighbor, and you'd have to hold your government accountable, and you are too much of a coward to do that. And that is where all of these comments come from. There it is at the end of the day. Either you own yourself or you're a slave. Either you believe you own yourself or you are more content being subjugated as a slave. And if you are more content being subjugated as a slave, then that's what you want for your peers as well. And that's what you promote and push, even if it's subconscious. And if you're really getting mad right now, it's because you know I'm right, but you don't want to admit it. Because when you admit these things are true to yourself, when you vocalize that makes sense and that's true, then you're responsible for it. And a slave doesn't have to be responsible. That's what everybody's running away from. That's what this video is about. That is the problem with all of these shootings, shooters, the things we are arguing about. Were they actually responsible? Is the government responsible? Is anybody responsible? You are responsible and they are responsible. You want to pay for someone else to take that responsibility, but on the inside you know that you can't. So that's what I got. I guess that anything else that I say here will just end up being blathering. This video is already too long, but you know, the situation that this Uvalde cop was put into is hard. It's a terrible situation. I do feel bad for him. He was given choices that are very difficult. that that nobody would want to make. And you know, many of us will make the wrong decision when the rubber hits the road and it's time to own yourself. But if you're a Punisher guy, if that is the hero that you choose to look up to and that mentally you feel like you emulate, then you should probably start thinking about what's right and wrong and what you're responsible for outside of government definition. Because that's your boy. That's what it is. So, text in the comment section below. I hope that you have a blessed day.